guys, it's Zach. This is going to be a video that's going to cover a lot of different topics. I'm going to try to kind of stay on track, but we're going to be covering a lot of different things. I'm going to try to do this in one take, but like I said, there's a lot of things that I want to discuss with this. But first and foremost, this video is, among other things, it's not meant to discourage in any way, and in fact, quite the opposite. It's meant to encourage, but also give you some things to look for as you're going on your separate paths. So, what I kind of want to dive into is this idea of, following a higher purpose or, defining what it is or why it is that each one of us are here and what we need to do for our highest good. Now, that's one of those things that kind of one of those esoteric subjects that we talk about of connecting with our higher self or connecting with God or whatever that is to you. We all have different language that we use to talk about the same things, and a lot of times it's kind of wishy-washy. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when we're discussing higher purpose and we're discussing why we're here, you get a lot of different nuance and you get a lot of different opinions on what it is that you should be doing. Now, I'm of the school of thought that essentially each one of us has to figure out why we're here on our own. And there's, different tools and mechanisms we can use to make that easier for us or more clear, rather. It's never easy. Let's get that out of the way now. It's never easy. But is it fulfilling? Yes. Does it make you feel a lot more whole when you think that you're on the path that you should be and you're doing these things? Absolutely. But that being said, the purpose of this video, like I said, it isn't to discourage, but it is to draw attention to some of the hardships and things that, if you're truly trying to connect with the person that you're supposed to be, some of the things, the roadblocks that you're going to run into. So there's a very interesting philosophy behind this, and I'm going to kind of just dip my toes into some of these concepts, and we'll probably expand on these in the future. But like I said, this is just kind of like an introductory thing, not to dissuade you from following your purpose, but just kind of give you some things to look out for. So first and foremost, when you are on a path of enlightenment, if you want to call it that, or your higher purpose, your higher self, you will find that the world has ways of actively working against you. And now I know what you're thinking, and I'm not going to go into like gang stalking or anything wild like that. That's a conversation for a whole nother video on its own. And I know there's mixed opinions on, the validity of that, but it would be an interesting topic to discuss sometime. But I'm not necessarily talking about in the idea of people trying to prevent you from doing things, although it can manifest that way. A good way to kind of get this conversation started is to discuss how you really are going to feel alienated and isolated when you start this path, because as many of us know, trying to be different, going against the status quo, trying to take things into consideration in this day and age of spirituality and health and mindfulness and all these really nice concepts that work great with us, meditation, there's always some pushback because it's not necessarily what the flavor of the month. There's a lot of people that aren't going to understand why it is that you're doing things. They're not going to understand why you're stepping away from certain lifestyles. They're not going to understand why you don't want to go out to the bar and drink anymore. They're not going to understand why you want to remove yourself from certain social media spaces. They're not going to understand why you're spending more time alone, and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, each one of these uh, journeys is for us to discover on our own. But I just wanted to get that out of the way, that as you start going on your own path and you start kind of going against the grain and doing things that you believe are going to fulfill you, you are going to feel a little bit alone and you're going to feel a little bit isolated. And that is okay, for multiple reasons. The most obvious being we really do uh, the most growing as people when we're by ourselves, when we really get to know who we are and what it is that we're wanting to do. Um, and that's always easier when you quiet the noise, if you remove the distractions, if you kind of get away from spending a bunch of time with people who don't necessarily align with what it is that you're trying to do. You'll really start to discover um, what it is that makes you tick, what it is that makes you feel whole, what it is that um, you feel that you really should be doing. So don't get discouraged when you feel alone or you feel isolated or you feel like people don't understand what you're going through, because quite frankly, most people won't. Most people are still on a lower vibrational energy, if you want to describe it that way, to where they're still interested in, the instant gratification. They're still interested in more things of this world rather than the the esoteric, the abstract, the spiritual, however, whatever kind of language you want to use for that. Um, so don't get discouraged with that. And in fact, you'll find that you learn a lot more about yourself, and it will really affect you in a lot of positive ways when you start spending more time alone. Now, on that same token, um, and I know I've experienced this at times myself, which is why I feel I can speak on it. Um, when we go through these periods of kind of darkness in our life, of where we kind of withdraw from people and we're focusing on us, and we're trying to do things to better ourselves, and we find ourselves in that solitude. I've noticed that the world will often send people to really break that concentration, and it manifests in different ways. It could be as simple as, a beautiful woman that suddenly becomes interested in you, and you find yourself rebattling, some of those battles you've already won, with lust and desire and things of the material nature that you were trying to stick away from. But it doesn't always have to manifest that way. It could be as simple as, an old friend that you used to party with all the time, moves back to your area and is wanting to reconnect. And maybe he hasn't moved away from that lifestyle yet. Maybe he hasn't reached in his life where you are now. But yet, you still care for that person. You want to connect with that person. But ultimately, if they don't accept what you're doing is different and how your life is different and how you're essentially trying to be different, um, that can become a distraction, and that can become a force that's kind of pulling you in the opposite direction. Another thing to consider is just the emotions that are going to be thrust on you, that you're going to have to process and that you're going to have to go through. It's not always easy. We already touched on the feelings of aloneness and that solitude. And if you can really learn to make that work for yourself, it really doesn't end up being negative. However, we're humans, and we always long for companionship. We long to connect with others. And many of us will find that the purpose that we're seeking will oftentimes involve helping others or building other people up. And I think that is one of the things that I have found is the closer that I get to where I feel like I'm really following my purpose, the more that I want to help people, the more I want to build them up. Um, but like I said, you have to be careful of these energies that will enter your life that a lot of times they come out of nowhere and we're not prepared for them. You might have uh, you might start a romantic connection with someone, and you might be a caring, nurturing person who wants to build them up and try to see the best in them and try to kind of help them catch up with you. But it's not always going to work out that way. So it's important to not sacrifice what we have going on uh, for these material um, desires and wants. And a lot of times it's easier said than done. Another big thing that we have to watch out for is our time being sapped from us. And believe me, I'm one of those people that I don't really believe in time per se. I think that it's something that we've just invented to kind of measure change within the world. But that being said, we all know that we have a limited amount of time that we're going to be here on this world. And many of us have things that we want to do, that we want to complete, that we want to succeed in. And we need to realize that our time is valuable, whether it's real or not, whether it is a measure of change. You have a limited amount of it, is a limited resource. So it's always important to really use that wisely. And I think you will find that um, the world always tries to snag more of your time, and it's a very interesting mechanism because um, you waste a few minutes here waiting in line over here, or you have to call one of these numbers that, oh well, let me put you on hold. And we all know it's hard to like multitask with this going on over here and this going on over here, so we find ourselves being stretched very thin. And it's I don't want to, sound like a wild guy, but a lot of it is by design. You look at the short attention spans of people nowadays; it is shrunken. I think the last statistic I saw was that it's around 8 seconds, um, which really isn't very impressive. And in fact, it's very unlikely that you can dive into a subject and fully comprehend it in 8 seconds. But that's kind of the way that the world is moving around us, is this rapid fire of information, and it's less critical thinking, and it's more like a spoon-fed mentality. People are cruising through their feeds, their TikTok, their YouTube shorts, Instagram reels, Facebook reels, whichever one you want to point to. But it's a rapid fire of information, and it's, hey, this is what's going on. And then honestly, how often do we take the time to really investigate something? Or are we typically emotionally drawn to something and then we accept it as true because maybe we already had a preconceived notion about that and it confirmed it? So time is crucial. It is a crucial resource. How you're using it, um, and this idea of rapid fire quick dopamine fixes, it isn't the way to go about it, and it's not going to get you where you want to go. We need to really be focusing on um, like those long-term goals and those things that take time, because those are the things that are going to provide the most positive results for you. um, Another thing that we need to watch out for is slipping into old habits. And I've struggled with this one myself. And I do have a somewhat addictive personality, and I'm aware of that. However, it doesn't make it any more easy to deal with. And I often find myself being drawn to some of those things that I had beaten before. And then it kind of creates a battle all over again. You have to defeat it again. So that kind of segues into a conversation about mindfulness and really being the one in charge of your decisions, and not operating on kind of this autopilot mentality where we're just going through the motions based on our learned behavior that we've already been doing. But we can dive into mindfulness at another time. But I wanted to touch on that because that's just another tendril of the world that will kind of pull you from really fulfilling your greatest purpose and being the best person that you can be. So another thing that we all have to watch out for is distractions. And I did a video on that for the Driven series. If you want to check that out, where I kind of touched on distractions and how we really need to be trying to spend more time with those things away from us so that we can really not only learn who it is that we are, um, but really identify things in our life that maybe we've been putting off or that we're insecure about, or things that are really keeping us from reaching our potential. So these are just some things, like I said, these aren't to discourage you from, going down uh, your greatest path or trying to become the greatest version of you. These are just some things that you need to realize come with the territory. When you start living outside um, the normal realms of society, you're going to really feel the pressure from some of these things when you start doing things differently. And that's okay, because I'm of the opinion that that's kind of part of the battle. That's kind of part of what it is you're supposed to do. That's kind of the point, is go through those points of being uncomfortable and not necessarily always getting to do what it is that you want, but for a greater outcome on the end. So, that being said, I know we kind of touched on a lot of different things, but the big thing, guys, is really look at who you're letting get close to you and what you're spending your time on. If you can kind of solidify those two things and be very strict with yourself about what it is that you will and will not allow, as far as your boundaries and how they will impact your goals and where it is that you want to be, um, you'll really be ahead of the game. And it's not going to be easy. And there's going to be times where you have to miss out on certain things, but it's okay, because it's one of the struggles. It's part of it. So don't get discouraged if you start, feeling like some of these forces are really weighing on you and really trying to steal your time and really trying to steal your energy. But be aware of them so that you can combat it, and be aware of them so that um, if you notice a lot of these things that are going on, and these maybe people that are kind of coming out of the woodworks to derail you, or give you stress, or like bring up old things, it's a good indicator that you're probably on the right track. Um, because if you're not, then one, you're not going to be really looking out for those things. You're just going to kind of fall into those old habits, and you're going to be willing to just kind of dive into those situations. So that's an indicator that, one, you're being aware of that those aren't healthy and those aren't for you anymore. But then it's also, like I said, this kind of a weird mechanism in the world where we kind of get this pushback whenever it is that we've, start trying to do certain things that go against the status quo. That's a good thing. One last thing that I wanted to talk about, as far as like kind of feeling isolated and alone, and because I've been through this, like I understand that it can be uncomfortable, and I know that it's tough, but truth be told, some of my greatest creativity comes from, kind of those solemn uh, nights of, not really interacting with people and kind of just, sitting with my emotions and kind of processing things. That's where a lot of my greatest creativity comes from. But that being said, um, we are going to need others, obviously. We need to be able to have that companionship and that sort of thing. So the idea is you want to try to connect with people that have a similar understanding of the world that you do. And it's not always easy. I guess the point that I'm trying to get at is don't think that everyone is capable of a higher thinking, because it's just simply not true. Don't waste the time and energy on trying to build someone up to your level just to have that companionship. Um, that's a multifaceted topic, but the most obvious reason for that is, one, that's going to be time that you're taking away from yourself, but then two, if you're building someone up merely for you, then we are kind of in selfish territory, and then we're not really doing it for the right reasons necessarily. And also, um, on that note, those people, um, you can't wake people up necessarily. Like, you can lead them in the right direction, but everyone has to make the decision for themselves. So, uh, lead people, help them, give your input about certain things that you think might improve their quality of life, but um, don't make it your sole mission to try to wake a certain person up or to bring them up on your level, because that's something that they have to discover and go through on their own. And um, oftentimes, if you do that, you're just going to find that you're disappointed because it didn't meet your expectations. Um, but then on top of that, it's going to be a waste of time that you could be spending elsewhere. So um, I know I talked about being selfish a minute ago, but in some ways, when we're early on our path and we're working on what it is that we need to do, we need to be a little bit selfish. We can't think that we can build everybody up, because we still have a lot of work to do, each one of us. So just some things to think about. Um, like I said, not to discourage anybody, but just some things um, to be aware of whenever you start going down your path of your highest good. So it's all good, guys. Everything happens for a reason. These negative influences and stuff, they have no power over you. You just have to be mindful all the time, be conscious of what's going on and why, and be aware it's because you're taking the right steps, and the world just looks differently to you now because um, you've realized that you're not of this world. So appreciate you guys listening, and I think I'm gonna try to do one of these little spitballing sessions about once a week or so. I know I've been inactive on the channel. Uh, Not that I had a great following whenever I was doing it anyway, and I was kind of in a different realm as far as focusing on some tarot and stuff like that, which I still do for certain people, and I might post some of those, record and post some of those videos that I do, the tarot readings with clients. Um, but the space on YouTube is just so saturated now. I just don't feel like it's worthwhile, and I'm kind of trying to take this channel in a different direction. So if you guys want to leave me a comment, let me know if you like what I had to say. If you want to hear more about specific topics we touched on, just let me know and kind of lead me in the right direction for where we want to go with the next one. But I know that was a lot going on. I know I was all over the place. But like I said, it was a lot of different material to cover. So thanks again, guys, and I'll see you on the next one, okay?